In Module 4, Basic Troubleshooting, you learn limitations to capturing applications with ThinApp, common issues that might occur, and basic troubleshooting steps and recommendations. After you complete this module, you should be able to list some of the common issues that arise when capturing and deploying applications with VMware ThinApp. Describe the basic steps you should take to troubleshoot captured applications. Now you can look at some limitations to ThinApp. Software with driver dependencies and other specific operating system components usually require traditional installation technologies. Using ThinApp to capture unsupported applications can lead to degraded application functionality. Typically, only part of the application does not work, not the entire application. These types of applications include applications that provide shell integration are no longer integrated with other applications in the system. Applications that install network-accessible DCOM services. ThinApp isolates COM and DCOM, so applications that install network-accessible DCOM services are accessible only on the local PC by other captured applications running in the same sandbox. ThinApp supports virtual DCOM and COM on the same PC, but does not support network DCOM. Applications that require device drivers do not work when packaged with ThinApp. You must install those device drivers in their original format on the host computer. Because ThinApp does not support virtualized device drivers, you cannot use ThinApp to virtualize antivirus, VPN clients, personal firewalls, and disk and volume mounting related utilities. For example, if you capture Adobe Acrobat, you can open, edit, and save PDF files, but you cannot see or use the PDF printer driver that enables you to save documents to PDF format. Now, look at some common issues that might occur when using ThinApp. You can look in the log files for indications of different types of problems. To generate log files, start the log monitor by selecting Start, Programs, VMware, ThinApp Log Monitor. Next, start the captured application you want to monitor, and the log monitor starts generating trace files. The default location for trace files for a local installation can be found here. See Program Files, VMware ThinApp. You can change the location where the trace files are saved, and you can also specify if you want the trace files to be converted to text files, and where you want the text files to be stored in the main log monitor window. Some of the issues you might find include isolation modes. A symptom of an isolation mode problem is that the application sees what it should not see in the file system or registry keys, or it does not see what it should see. You can see this in the log. For example, if isolation mode was incorrectly configured and a file should have gone to the host file system, you might see the file in the sandbox. Check the package.ini file for the default settings, and then check for #attributes.ini files in each folder in the project folder. Also, look for hkey_registry subtree.txt files in the project folder for the application. Non-clean capture environment. A symptom that a non-clean environment existed when the package was captured is that the application looks for something that it cannot find, such as a DLL, a file, or a registry key. This might be the problem if the captured application works on the capture machine but not on the test machine. On the test machine, look at Add or Remove Programs for a quick view of what else is installed on the capture machine. Look in the log for what the application is looking for that might have been installed in the non-clean environment. To isolate issues due to a non-clean capture environment, a best practice is to recapture and rebuild on a clean virtual machine. The captured application might work then. Missing prerequisites. A symptom of a missing prerequisite is that the application looks for something that it cannot find, such as a DLL, a file, or a registry key. This is similar to a non-clean capture environment issue, in that something necessary for the application to run is not installed on the deployment machine. For example, .NET was on the capture machine, but not on the deployment machine. This is typically the problem if the capture is on Windows 7, but the test is on XP. Windows 7 has extra things in the operating system that Windows XP does not. This is why it is important to use the oldest version of Windows in your capture environment. Communication errors. Most applications obtain the machine name dynamically. Occasionally, however, an application might save the machine name during installation, which would be captured indirectly as part of some file or a registry key. Then the application tries to use that machine name on a deployment machine, and a user gets an error in trying to communicate with that named machine. The application needs to communicate with the local host. Look in the log for indications of this. Now look at some basic troubleshooting steps. If a captured application has issues, first check that the natively installed application runs on a physical machine with the appropriate version of Windows. Next, after you have captured the application on the capture machine, but before you build the project, run this natively installed application on the capture machine to see if it works. If it does not, the captured application probably does not work. Build the project on the capture machine and then run the captured application on the capture machine to see if it works. If you need to run the captured application again on the capture machine, delete the sandbox between runs. Sometimes the sandbox entries can affect how the application behaves on subsequent runs. Copy the captured application executable from the capture machine's bin folder to the test machine, and run the captured application on the test machine to see if it works. Use the log monitor found at Start, Programs, VMware, ThinApp Log Monitor to compare the ThinApp logs on the capture machine to the logs on the test machine to see if there are issues only on the test machine. If the captured application's executable works on the capture machine but not on the deployment machine, you might be able to see the difference in the logs. Always test to see if a newer version of ThinApp makes the application work. It might be a new capability of the more recent version of ThinApp that makes it work now. It might be a bug in an earlier version of ThinApp that kept it from working. Move the project folder, point to a newer version of ThinApp, and then rebuild the application. Also, delete the sandbox on your test machine if you are rebuilding with a new version of ThinApp and retesting the captured application. Deleting your own sandbox ensures that no configurations remain from the last time you ran the captured application. By default, the sandbox is in C, Documents and Settings, Username, Application Data, Thinstall, App Name. You might want to keep the old sandbox in a file to compare it to the new one. A symptom might be that the application once ran on the test machine but no longer works. The solution is to delete the user sandbox and test the clean captured application again. Deleting the sandbox is useful only if the application once ran on the test machine but no longer works. Deleting it ensures that user changes in the sandbox are not contributing to the malfunction. If the captured application never worked on the test machine, deleting the sandbox does not help. The cause of failure is unlikely to involve the sandbox. Sometimes it is helpful to control the sandbox location for troubleshooting. If you create a Thinstall folder in the bin folder of the captured application, the sandbox is located there instead of in the default location. Or create a Thinstall folder in whichever folder you copy the standalone application binaries to. The ThinApp runtime checks the current working folder for a Thinstall folder. If the folder is there, it places the sandbox there, not in the default location. A basic troubleshooting tool is the log monitor. The log monitor captures detailed chronological activity for executable files that the captured application starts. To start the log monitor, select the Start menu and select Programs, VMware, ThinApp Log Monitor. The log monitor intercepts and logs names, addresses, parameters, and return values for each function call by target executable files or DLLs. Log monitor captures the following activity: Win32 API calls from applications running in the ThinApp virtual operating system. Potential errors, exceptions, and security events within the application. All DLLs loaded by the application and address ranges. The generated log files can be large and over 100 megabytes depending on how long the application runs with Log Monitor and how active an application is. The only reason to run Log Monitor for an application is to capture trace files. Trace files are critical for troubleshooting problems by analyzing and correlating multiple entries within the trace file. To use the Log Monitor to troubleshoot a ThinApp package, follow these steps. Step 1. Shut down the captured application to investigate. Step 2. On the computer where you captured the application, select Start, Programs, VMware, ThinApp Log Monitor. To start Log Monitor on a deployment machine, copy the log_monitor.exe, logging.dll, and set up capture.exe files from C, Program Files, VMware, VMware ThinApp, to the deployment machine, and double-click the log_monitor.exe file, or you can also run it from a network share. Step 3. Start the captured application. As the application starts, a new entry appears in the Log Monitor list. The Log Monitor shows one entry for each new trace file. Each file does not necessarily correspond with a single process. Step 4. Terminate the application as soon as it encounters an error. Step 5. Generate a text file for each trace file you want to investigate by selecting the .trace file in the list and clicking Generate Text Trace Report. Child processes that the parent process generates reside in the same log. Multiple independent processes do not reside in the same log. ThinApp generates a .trace file. The Log Monitor converts the binary .trace file into a .txt file. Step 6. Open the .txt file with a text editor and scan the information. In some circumstances, the text file is too large to open with a simple text editor. This is an optional step. The virtual registry and virtual file system are not accessible by the standard Windows tools Regedit and Explorer. You must incorporate specific user-accessible entry points during setup capture so that you can access the application. These two entry points are invaluable. cmd.exe gives you access to the virtual file system from the perspective of the virtual application, which is very important. In command mode, you can access virtual files that you cannot access from the regular machine if the virtual application is isolated from the host. You can also test other natively installed applications, like Notepad, from the virtual cmd.exe to see how they behave in the virtual environment. Regedit.exe gives you access to the virtual registry from the perspective of the virtual application. If you did not choose Regedit.exe and cmd.exe as entry points in the Setup Capture wizard, you might want to enable these in the package.ini file and rebuild the application. You can enable these entry points by changing disabled equals 1 to disabled equals 0 for each one in the package.ini file. After enabling and rebuilding, you see that these exes are available in the bin folder for the application. If these files are not present in the project, ThinApp calls the native versions present on the deployment system. The isolation mode setting might prevent the native versions from seeing the changes made by the application. To recapture an application, do not uninstall the program with Add or Remove Programs and then delete the application's project folder. The application can always leave traces behind, which might affect a recapture. A best practice is to take a snapshot of your clean virtual machine before you run the first setup capture. Then go back to the clean virtual machine snapshot and recapture. This concludes the basic troubleshooting module. In summary, some common issues that might arise when deploying applications with ThinApp include: a symptom of an isolation mode problem is that the application sees what it should not see in the file system or registry keys, or it does not see what it should see. You see this in the log. A symptom of a non-clean capture environment is that the application looks for something that it cannot find, such as a DLL, a file, or a registry key. A symptom of a missing prerequisite is that the application looks for something that it cannot find, such as a DLL, a file, or a registry key. Another symptom might be a communication error. Some applications obtain the machine name dynamically. Basic troubleshooting steps you should try when issues arise with a ThinApp application. Shut down the captured application to investigate. On the computer where you captured the application, select Start, Programs, VMware, ThinApp Log Monitor. Start the captured application. Terminate the application as soon as it encounters an error. Generate a text file for each trace file you want to investigate. Open the .txt file with a text editor and scan the information. Congratulations! You have completed Module 4, Basic Troubleshooting. Now that you have completed this module, you can take the associated quiz. Feel free to review the course material until you are ready to proceed. When you are ready to proceed, close this window and return to the MyLearn learning management system.